So I think you just have to, did you press?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Road to Radical Visibility. I am your host, Rachel Freemon Sowers, also known as the Breakthrough Bitch, because I am passionate about helping people in the LGBTQ plus and other marginalized individuals break through what is holding them back from being 100% themselves 100% of the time. No shame or guilt needed. And I am so excited about our guest today. As you know, this is really the thing I love doing, is bringing people onto the show and having you witness how they are being 100% themselves 100% of the time. And my guest today is a multi-passionate person and entrepreneur. So if you are a multi-passionate person and or entrepreneur, you will want to stay around because you will love her story. I met Marla as she was interviewing me actually in a Facebook group. And so of course we got chatting and I was like, I'm connecting with this woman. I love part of what she's doing. And I felt really kind of a camaraderie with her because, as many of you know, I am also multi-passionate in my life and in my business. And so she really was just telling us about all of the things that she has overcome, but also more importantly, how she has become radically visible because of the things she has overcome. So I don't want to delay it anymore. I would love to have all of you help me welcome my guest, Marla Martinez. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, and I guess okay, so this is real. Marla texted me like 10 o'clock or so. We were supposed to do the interview at 10:30, and she's like, I have no power on the island. So you're on Isla Mujeres, right?
Isla Mujeres, which is a little 5-mile island off the coast of Cancun. And actually, I guess the whole Yucatan Peninsula was out because that's where we get our power from. And that was the story that we were hearing. So we're back.
Yeah.
Hashtag island life.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's like how willing are you to just be able to flow into these things? Right. And being multi-passionate, I believe, helps adjust to different scenarios. So before we go on anymore, because I'll just get started. The first question I always ask my guests is, what does radical visibility mean to you?
It means, for me, it means when you are seeking something that's not in the box, thinking out of the box and just making life work for you and making that okay. There's some, bringing normalcy to things that are out of the box for me, and being kind of your own spokesperson for that. And I feel like that's definitely me.
Yeah, I love to hear all the different definitions of radical visibility. And I think your definition is definitely similar to several others. It's really about becoming comfortable with yourself and how you need to do things for you. Right. So tell us a little bit about all of the things that you do and how you got to this point.
Okay, well, I will try and give you the short version. So I live on this Caribbean island, and in 2000, I used to live in Los Angeles, and then I did my master's degree there in educational leadership at Pepperdine, and then moved to Las Vegas and was director of curriculum and instruction at a private school there. And so was with some friends from LA, and we came on vacation to Cancun, and we came over to the island for vacation. I'm like, oh, this is what I'm looking for. At the time I was living in Las Vegas. And so I'm like, I have that at home. I want this low key, lifestyle. And so we loved it. And I planned another trip. And then long story short, I just kept coming back over and over and over. And I kept meeting more and more locals, Mexican local, and as well as the huge expatriate community that live here on the island. And I just kept saying to myself, well, other people get to live there. Why don't I get to live there?
I think that sometimes when I go traveling,
like they get to do it. Why can't I do it? And so in 2009, I opened a Google document, still have it, and titled it The Escape Plan. And I started just sort of writing it out. What do I need to do? And I remember vividly being here in 2009 and, talking with friends and, how do I do this? And, I know there are lifestyle things that, might prevent people from just picking up and moving to a foreign country, but, I didn't have them. So it worked. And something happened in my job where I was consulting that I loved. I loved my job, but I was tired and I was ready to do something different. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to do it. And if I have to move back to the States and work until I retire like the rest of the world, okay. And, so I just did. I sold my house, sold my car, sold all my things, and, stored a few things at my mom's house, and just said, I'm going. And if I have to move back, I will. And 12 years later, I'm still here. But, when I first moved here, I thought, well, I'm going to be consulting still, educational leadership consulting, working with curriculum and things. And, I'm still going to be doing that. And I did do a couple of, but then I kept finding, well, I didn't want to leave the island. I wanted to stay here. And so I would, I figured out what do we need? Well, at that time, there was a property manager here on the island who was making some bad decisions, and she kind of got booted off the island. And so there were all these properties that needed managers. And well, I'm kind of smart and I'm responsible and communicative.
Kind of smart.
I could probably do that. And, my now husband, Javi, is from the island. So he was connected to, if I needed workers and things. And so I could do that. And, I'm somewhat organized enough. And so I started doing that. And then I realized, well, it's not really what I want to do. But then another thing people were needing was during that time, and 12 years ago, people needed websites and social media stuff for their business. And so I filled that void. And then one of the websites that I built was for someone who did property rentals, like a VRBO, Airbnb. She had multiple little budget rentals on her property, on her website that I built for her. She's like, I'm kind of tired of doing this. You want to buy it back? And I'm like, okay. And now I've grown that business into 150 properties, and I rent, all over the island. It also has concierge service. And, when I first moved here, people would say, what, you live here? What do you do when you live here? And we would say, well, we get together and we have good food and play. My husband's a musician, and we play guitar. And they're like, well, I want to do that. So then Dinnertainment was born. So this is our catering business that we come to. If you rent the villa, we come to the villa and we bring dinner, and Javi plays guitar. And so it's kind of like one price, and we bring the party, and we have, you've rented this amazing house, why not enjoy it? And so then in 2016, we said, we should probably get that prep kitchen out of our house and get a proper prep kitchen. And so Javi's grandmother's house came available. And so we said, okay, we'll make a prep kitchen in there and just put a few tables in the front, serve some tapas and some beer. Well, then that took off. So we're like, okay, well, here we go. We have a restaurant, and we expanded that. And then Dinnertainment and the restaurant and the vacation rentals and the concierge. And then we kind of figured out how it all kind of worked together. And so when you book a property with me, then I kind of have an audience. I'm creating my own audience for these other side hustles, so to speak. Well, fast forward, since that was 2016.
So hold on one second. I just want to say, like, if you're listening, you're like, oh my God, I don't know how she does it. There are those of us that are born with these special brains. And if you're one of those people, you know exactly what we're talking about. And I love how you thought out of the box. And of course, we'll get to some of the COVID stuff, which then helped you scale so many other things, right?
Right.
But you were thinking out of the box. And it's so important for us to be trusting ourselves during those moments. Right. So with just the stuff that you've talked about so far, how did you keep trusting yourself?
I didn't always trust myself. So many times I questioned myself. And, I know we'll talk about COVID in a minute, but one of the things that, you and I just spoke about is when COVID hit and I was desperate, and I'm like, I'll do anything. And, and I ended up not getting work that I was asking people to give. I wasn't asking for free money. I was asking for work. And, people would say, well, I don't think you should do this. I think you're a little overqualified. Maybe you should go look at this. And I'd be like, Yeah, I just kind of, I have 15 employees at my restaurant that I need to support. So,
Yeah.
anyway, you're right. I trusted myself finally, and I didn't take any of those situations because it would have been bad for me. I don't think I could ever go back to working for someone else. And, thank goodness I didn't get those positions. And, we just figured out ways to side hustle our way through it. And that's what we've always done.
And so some people will think it's exhausting, and some people will think it's invigorating, and some people will feel it's exhausting and invigorating all at the same time, which is where I often land. Sometimes it's exhausting, sometimes it's invigorating, but I would never give it up, right? So you create all of these things, you move there, then COVID hits. Then what happened?
Well, as you just said, some people think it's exhausting, some people think it's invigorating. The way my brain works, I love the whole entrepreneurship piece of it, because that's the creative part that feeds my brain. And if it's not, it's exhausting for me not to be able to think like that. So it has a reverse effect on me. And my husband, bless his heart, every time he hears the words come out of my mouth, I have an idea. He's like, oh dear God, please.
My wife does the same thing.
And he is ADHD from the word grow. I mean, ADHD hell, that's where we live. And so, we manage, and, and the way that you and I know each other through Kirsten and Jeannie, they helped me hire my virtual assistants. And that has really helped me kind of keep a manage on things. But, sorry, I lost.
That's okay. Well, so, in your experience and in my experience, we really can see a bigger picture, right? Yes. And we'll get into how you help other multi-passionate entrepreneurs in a little bit. But if we went from, COVID hits on the island. I mean, like, your island is small. It's like 5 miles.
And they closed it. I mean, no one could come to the island for like 2 months. And the restaurant was closed for like 6 months, almost 5 months. Maybe till about May or June. And then people weren't really coming. So we're completely 100% tourism based, and tens of thousands of dollars in vacation rentals returned, that I refunded. And then the restaurant, we have, 15 local families, and I was, not going to let them go hungry. And so Javi and I started a Friday night live, which, by the way, we still do 2 years later. We've not abandoned it.
I've watched it.
You did. And then we have Javineros that donate, monthly. And now that we don't need it for our families as much, we also donate to other charities now. So that's kind of found a life of its own as well. But, COVID really changed things. That was your question earlier, that it made us think differently. And, that's one of the things, you kind of start looking for your own zone of genius. And I feel like I love doing that. I love thinking about business opportunities that people could do based on their skill set, thinking out of the box.
And so, if those of you who may not know what zone of genius is, because I have run into some people that aren't aware of what that is, it is really this zone that you experience, and it's almost like euphoria. It's like you're dialed in, you're focused. Every part of your body starts going, yes, we got this. We know exactly what to do. Like, it's just this remarkable space. And when you find your zone of genius, so my zone of genius is emotions. It's big picture. It's bringing people back around and honestly helping them be 100% themselves 100% of the time. No shame or guilt needed. Like, that's my zone of genius. I love it when I'm in this space helping people. That's where I love living. Right.
And we need it, especially people like us. We need people like you to help us, really highlight, okay, here's where I see, opportunity here, because a lot of us don't trust that. And
I think you've grown to trust it. I mean, like, you help other multi-passion entrepreneurs do the same thing, to focus with these done for you services, to where you don't always, that person doesn't have to figure out all of the small things. You can see the bigger picture. You can say, this is where this can go in. This is how you can experience this. And it really does help them create those successes that they desire in their business, and therefore also in their life, because business and life are connected. They're not separate.
Right. I have one client that I work with specifically, and she is so much like me. I love her.
Mm.
And, so, she starts telling me all these things that she's doing, and we're sort of prioritizing her list. And like, okay, what does that have to do with this? Well, it doesn't, but it's just another thing I'm doing. Like, okay, well, maybe that can wait. And so where are we going to put that? So it's just a matter of talking somebody through. And I have, you and I talked about this, that I'm also part of a mastermind group. It's a Pat Flynn. We're part of a SPI Pro group. And within that, there are 5 of us that have been meeting since the pandemic started. And over a year we've been together. Every Monday we meet, and I do not ever want to miss that group because it's what keeps me focused.
And so many people too here have heard that I have an accountability partner who I met at a James Wedmore event. Literally, we had a 30-second interaction. He posted in the group. And I was like, hey, I'm interested in becoming accountability partners. And literally, we've been accountability partners for 2-3 years now.
Nice.
And so I feel like that really helps if we're talking about, 3 strategies, the top 3 strategies that can really help is having that person that you can be with, and there's no judgment, and there's not the thing of why aren't you doing this, or what did you do this week and show me how you did this. It's more like you're able to be that person you want to be. Right.
And with no, like you say, no guilt, no judgment. Last summer, 2 of that group came to the island. We did a little yearly reunion, and so we all rented a house and we stayed in the house, and they got to actually come into my businesses and see how it works. And all the things that I've been talking about, they kind of got to see how it worked. And so that was total bonus for me, that, just in the fire of everything of it was huge. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I think when people understand those kinds of things, when they can see it and it gets intimate, right? You have these people in your life that you can be that kind of vulnerable with and 100% yourself, right? So after the pandemic, you had to feed these 15 families. You created these other things. This one thing has turned now into something where you give back to the community, right? What are your what is your focus now, or what are your focuses now? I guess I should say it that way.
What my focus is now is retirement. I want to retire in 5 years. I'll be 60 in October 27, 2027. And so that's my goal. And so I'm starting now. What I learned a lot last year was when one of our businesses scaled like 4 times last year. This year, we've already exceeded what we made the revenue the total year last year. And it's just June. And I believe that is because I worked with Kirsten and Jeannie and hired that virtual assistant. It's kind of like a pot, right? When you start with a seedling and you put it in a larger pot, then it can grow larger. And that's what we've done with this catering business. And we've folded it into the restaurant so that the restaurant, gotten rid of that antiquated model. And this is just another event that we plan. And, we're working with private events, and it's easier to arrange. And so being able to have systems and processes in place, allows for that scalability, right? So building the team and having all that in place. And so that is my focus right now, is getting those systems and processes in place so that these businesses can either grow, be sold, run more on their own, or me hire team members to run them so that I can step back more. But, that's the goal. The hard part is that I keep adding to it. Oh, well, we should do this. We should do that. We could do this. We could do that. But on my laptop, I have a sticker that says, just because I can doesn't mean I should.
Yeah, I can definitely feel that, because there are lots of things that I'm interested in, but it's like, what are the things that are truly have the staying power for me? What are the things that I come back to over and over and over again? And as many of you know, that is health and wellness throughout my life, through those ups and downs of all of that, recently riding the AIDS life cycle ride, right? And those things are going to continue. The other thing that's staying is really this 100% yourself 100% of the time, no shame or guilt needed. That is really something that's had this staying power. And like when you allow someone to help you and to look at your, let's just say for you, it was your business. Like I've also asked Jeannie and Kirsten, what is the Facebook group that they have? I cannot remember. It's not the six figure.
Six figure business coaching is their business.
Okay.
Marketing, I'll look it up while you finish your sentence.
So, it's about allowing these people to come in and see your business and get to know you so that they can say, hey, this is what is good for you. So it's just like you have this ability to look at this larger picture and really help people stay focused. Right. And so it's about having a coach or having a mentor or someone who can
accountability,
who can be they can be more objective because they're not in it.
Right. That's right. It's just a different perspective, because we all have those experiences that we bring to a situation. That's a lens, right? It's just a different lens of a different way of looking at it, and what's comfortable for you. The name of that group is Mastering Online Marketing for Female Entrepreneurs, and it's a group. Six figure business coaching is their business.
So I'll put the link in the comments below. I'll also have all of Marla's links also. But, I know Marla's been a guest in that Facebook group, and you've done the interviewing, and I'm going to be able to be a guest more than once this next year. So I'm really excited about that. But it's about finding these people that you can fit with too. But the only way that you know who you fit with is to know yourself. That's true. Number one strategy was to be part of a larger group, right? Get that support group. You have a mastermind group. It can be any kind of group. Number two is find a coach or a mentor. Right. That's number two. I'm not going to go to number three yet. What I want to ask you is, what have you learned about yourself over the last, let's just say 2 years, because it's 2022, over the last 2 years that's caused you to pause and then be like, this is it. This is where I'm going.
Well, being multi-passionate and doing a lot of different things, having systems and processes in place so that I am able to step back helps keep me focused on not adding things that are not going to get me to my goal, which will lead to number three. But, being focused on what it is that I want to accomplish and making sure I have systems and processes in place so that if something happens and I'm not able to, or maybe I could go on vacation or something, just anything to step away, that things are going to keep running, that things don't have to be chaos to be exciting. And
so that is a really great, I'm going to push a little bit. That's a really great external answer. I want to know how you've dealt with the emotions.
Okay. Push me more.
So we say that we can do systems. We have these goals. We're doing all of those kinds of things. And yet internally, that is not what it always looks like. In fact, the majority of the time, it doesn't look like that, especially in the beginning or when you're doing your own growth. But at some point in time, you had to get internal and be like, okay, Marla, this is it. Like, this is how we are going to be living our lives. How are we going to be being?
So part of that process of putting those systems and processes in place was getting it out of my head. Because before, I had all the balls in the air, not always in the air. A lot of times they fell. But, I was trying to keep them in the air. So the minute it has to get out of my head and into something else for another person to do, it means I'm giving up control. And so I had to really focus on, does it matter if they do it this way and not the way I've always done it? Does it really matter? And so just being able to step away. And a lot of times I cannot go to the restaurant because I would do it so differently. And there are little things that, what, do they matter? And so it's just, keeping a focus on what matters and what doesn't. And, there is a lot more of managing people and emotions and personalities and my master's degree is educational leadership. So I have a lot of that, but a lot of times I'm not as good at it. And so just being able to not be good at something and, figuring out what that is and how can I delegate it?
Well, yes. I mean, there's a couple of points you have there. Like we've already mentioned before, you're like, just because I can do it doesn't mean that I should, or honestly,
Right.
that I even really want to. Like if we get down deep,
Right.
like I don't really want to do that.
No.
Right.
Yes.
And then you have, I'm going to release this control. Oftentimes I see people and we talk about control and you squeeze so tight, but there's nothing left.
Right.
Like you have nothing in your hands. You're just squeezing tight to nothing.
Right.
And really saying, what belief system, what thing did I believe in to be true that may not be true, and it doesn't mean anything about me if it's not true.
Yeah.
Right. So we go into these deeper ways. A lot of times people, I don't know if they say this to you, they're like, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what I want to do. I just can't do it. And that's when we go into this mind-body connection where the body is like, I'm not safe. Right. So during those times, I'm sure there had to be times like it's safe for them to put the salt and pepper place in different places than I would set them.
Yes.
Like, yes. And that's a really simple example, but those are the things that.
For me, it's lighting. Like I have dimmers for a reason. So I go in and I'm like adjusting the lighting. I'm like, does anybody really care but me? No.
And really, if you're listening and or watching, I wonder if you have felt the same way where you kind of like if something, and it's just like, no, it's fine. This is honestly like those times when you have this self-reflection, right? Mm-hmm. So before we started this whole thing, we have the 3 strategies. We've already listed the 2. What is the 3rd strategy that you use to keep yourself focused and also to help your clients stay focused?
Yes. So I used to, before, I would keep everything on a calendar, but then I would also walk around with like a notebook. Mm-hmm. And then I just write all my notes. They would never get transferred anywhere. And I have 8 million of them. And
anyone else relate? That would be me.
I do have a system in my notebooks, but I actually don't use it anymore because this year I started using my iPad and I use GoodNotes, but there are many of them, but I use a digital planner. And I just got interested in it. And, you and I talked about sometimes they can be overwhelming and I don't use the parts, all of it, but, I do use the parts of it, but I don't use it as a planner. I use it as my own accountability kind of reflection journal. And then the one that I use, there is like a manifestation part, there's a affirmations part, there's a reflections part. So it's very internal and it helps me be grateful. It helps me recognize, keep myself grounded. And, it helps me not move on to another shiny object because I have to go back to these little 5 areas. There's one for the vacation rentals. There's one for myself personally. There's one financial. There's my restaurant and the catering. Then I have another one that's my refocused income streams, which is my consulting piece and with entrepreneurs. And then I have goals in that and I've broken them down into quarters and months. I don't do it by the week. I do it by the month. And then every month I just kind of go through a daily. I do daily and I set my priorities and my intentions for the day. I write down what I hope to get accomplished and then I don't beat myself up if I don't get it done. If it doesn't happen, well, there were reasons it didn't happen. And it might be because I needed to go spend some time in my pool and that just has to be okay. Right. And, it has helped me be kinder to myself and realize that I can't, there's no way, I think before when I used to keep all those balls in the air or try to, I just did it because that's what I do. But there's something about writing it down and reflecting on it that helps me see that it's absurd that I should be trying to keep that many balls in the air successfully, so, there is some gratitude for myself and what I'm able to do, by myself. And sometimes when I'm annoyed with someone who's not doing what I think they need to be doing, like I could run circles around those people, but I don't have to. They're doing the best that they can too. They have their own stuff that's going on. Maybe they're having a bad day or, so it does help me kind of keep myself grounded and,
Well, I love to like this self-compassion that you're implementing is something that will self-compassion for yourself does equal it equals compassion for others automatically. Like how we treat ourselves is truly reflected in the way that we treat other people. Now, some people will say, well, I wouldn't ever do that to myself. I don't do that to them. Well, then I'm going to just ask you the reverse. Like, if you don't do it to other people, why are you doing it to yourself?
That's right.
Right. And
Exactly.
you do it to yourself, or you like, there's all of these things that aren't congruent. And when we live in out of alignment and instead of in alignment, there's all of these things that always come up. Right. And I think setting those intentions, I mean, it's June already. As an entrepreneur, you're starting to see in the online world, like, what are the last half of year goals? Like, what are you going to do with it? And you've only got 6 months left. And I'm like, oh shit.
Fear and scarcity, get out of there. There's no room for it.
So it's almost like setting those intentions, that self-compassion. If you're multi-passionate, an entrepreneur, or just an individual, this can really help finding the systems that work for you. And if you don't find a system that works for you, then I'm sure that you can actually create one, because there are other people who think like you.
Yeah. And, interesting that yesterday in my mastermind group, one of my colleagues in that group, there are 5 of us, she said it was her day to kind of be in the hot seat. And she said, I think I need to reintroduce myself to my social media platforms. I feel like I've kind of been out of this loop because she just went through a horrible life experience with a family member. And, she's kind of been out of her routine a little bit for a couple of months. And so we kind of just talked her through it. And really what she needed was not to reintroduce herself to her following. She needed to reintroduce herself to herself and just decide what was important for her and where does she want to go. And so what, she's had 2 months off. You had kind of a lot going on. Be kind to yourself. And, it was good.
Well, in 2 months in the grand scheme of things isn't anything. Like if I don't show up on a social media thing for a while, then I don't show up on the social media thing for a while. I mean, I am just so hard-headed and refuse to believe that I have to do all of these things in order to be successful. Right. And I think that's where I love how you said, she really needed to introduce herself to herself, because it became so externally focused.
Yes.
Right. Everything was external. And we, I believe, especially as women and marginalized individuals, are taught to put other people's feelings and thoughts before our own. Like, I'm sorry I made you uncomfortable by being a lesbian. Like, that's what you're taught to do. And just in my realm, those kinds of things. So I love how, if any of you out there are struggling, consider that maybe it's not an external action that needs to take place, but really an internal loving and an internal reintroduction to really the things that you want in your life and how you want to be interacting both in business and your professional life, if you're an employee or you work for someone, as an entrepreneur, or any of those things. That really is one of the number one keys. So I just want to really quick review the 3 strategies. I know I've said them a couple of times and they'll obviously be in the comments below, but the number one of them was be a part of a mastermind group or a part of a larger group. Have a coach or a mentor. It really helps to have someone else's perspective that you can trust and that you can be 100% yourself with. And then find something that works for you. In Marla's case, it was this online digital planner
as a journal
that she's using as a journal. I'll put a note into some other things that I found that have been helpful for me, but there are ways that you can just operate the way that you want to, and you can still be as successful as anybody else. But first and most importantly, you can be your own definition of success.
And let that evolve. A timeline doesn't define you. It is just a timeline.
Oh, well, bam. Okay, we're stopping on that. Like, all right. So I just want to thank Marla so much for being my guest on the show today. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I know my audience is going to enjoy it. If you have enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe and click that like button. Let us know in the comments below. I'll make sure that Marla sees any comments that you guys put here on the YouTube channel and or on the podcast when it comes out. So I'm going to end this video like I end every single video. Please make sure to stay true to yourself, be kind to others, and always, always, always honor the wise one that is within all of you. I'll see you in the next episode of Road to Radical Visibility. Bye.